Okay, so I can just get going. Well, that was a lovely lunch. It was lovely to be with you and to be in this lovely place and eat your lovely food. It's a very nice way to spend Sabbath. So this afternoon, I'm going to be sharing about how we balance our emotions, how we flourish, actually. So I created a big project, which actually the whole world is using, about flourish and experiencing positive emotions to help people, particularly after the pandemic, because during the pandemic, this presentation was the one I was being asked to do almost every week somewhere in the world to help people with all their different feelings. And it really helped me. So let's pray and then I'll start to share. Father God, I just want to thank you for the way that you've made us, the way that you love us, the way that you've created us to feel, to experience, to share our feelings. And it's complicated in this broken world. We have feelings that actually we weren't really designed to experience, but we need them in this broken world. And thank you that you've also given us the emotions of heaven to help us balance the ones that come from this broken world. And today help us to understand how to balance those so that we can flourish in this challenging place. In Jesus' name, amen. So when I was in Scotland, I was asked by the NHS to do a couple of seminars, day-long seminars for people. And they gave me the material and they said, turn it into a day-long seminar. And they gave me a book called Positivity by a lady called Barbara Fredrickson. And you can get it on Amazon for like £12 or something. It's not very expensive. And I had to make a day-long seminar on this for people working with children. And as I read this book, I thought, I wonder if this can help me. It was a low point in my life because I had worked for the South England Conference with Bernie, and then he went to Scotland to be mission president, and I lost my job. I could no longer work at the South England Conference as his assistant because he didn't work there anymore. And so I went to Scotland and as a family therapist, and so I went along to the local job centre. We lived in the middle of nowhere, and I had to go along there every couple of weeks to get job seekers allowance. And the jobs were, well, I could make whiskey, I could go fishing, I could be a waitress or an Avon lady, and that was pretty much it. There may be 20 jobs every time you went to the job centre, and that was like the full range, and yeah, great. So I said, I'm a family therapist. Have you got any work for family therapists? And they said, there's 15 family therapists in Scotland, and all the jobs are taken by Scottish people. Okay, great. So it was a challenging time. I did about, all kinds of things to do, from Airbnb to teach craft and to do family therapy and all sorts of things. But it was a time when I wasn't feeling so great about myself. And when I learned about balancing my emotions, it really changed me because also I was naturally introvert, melancholy, and kind of glass half empty kind of person. When I learned how to balance my emotions from this work, I was like, let's just try this out. I realized, actually, I started to change to be a different person. I was much more positive. It's really helped me in my work now. Like, I don't think I could do what I do at the pace that I do it without knowing how to do what I'm going to share with you this afternoon. So it's been life-transforming for me. And the great thing is, it's really simple. It's not rocket science. And you know how to do all of these things already. It's just a matter of how we and when we use them. And they're so helpful for children as well. See, I said this could be for teenagers and anybody. So I think there's things here for the children. And anyone, when I finished, can take a bag and take one of everything on the table, choose the Bible verse, and I'll explain as we go through how to use them. So you've got your own little goodie bag. It's just really a reminder of the positive emotions and simple things you can do to experience them every day. So that was the context for learning how to balance my emotions in an unbalanced world, because I had no idea that I could choose my emotion. So I would feel something, I'd feel sad, and I think, oh, rubbish. I'm going to have to feel sad until sad goes away. And like, what can I do about it? I just have to feel sad until sad goes away. And then when I learned about this, I realized that even when people are sad, we can choose positive emotions. You don't have to be sad all the time. Like, we're not intended to do that. So we can choose, even during a sad period or a difficult time, to engage with positive emotions. And when I read the Bible, the most amazing thing is that Paul knew how to do this. Paul was in jail. He wrote Philippians, which is the most amazing, joyful book. It's really incredible. It's so inspiring. And yet he was in jail waiting execution. The worst kind of place to be, humanly speaking, really, in jail, in a Roman jail, waiting to have your head chopped off or whatever they were going to do. So I imagine that he woke up every morning not knowing if he was going to survive the day, whether maybe he did know that he was going to have his head chopped off, but maybe he didn't know if he was going to be fed to the lions or burnt at the stake or, slashed with a gladiator. And yet, this letter to his friends in Philippi is amazingly positive. And in Philippians 4, he details how he manages to stay positive in difficult situations. And it's incredible because most of everything that he shares there is in line with current research on how we are resilient in difficult situations, which is really, truly incredible. So if we look at what he says there, this is just a few of the things in that chapter. He praises God. He said, you can praise God. No matter what's happening, actually, we can praise God because God is always loving us. He is always good. He is unchanging. God doesn't change when our circumstances change. So we can consistently praise him for who he is and be happy that he loves us no matter what's happening to us. He says, give your worries to God. Cast all your cares upon him. Give your anxieties to him and let him take care of them. That's another good principle. He says, fill yourself with peace. And we can do that now, we know, by looking at nature with wonder. That helps us, and that's helped people through the pandemic, helped me as well. He says, let your gentleness be evident to all. That's about being kind. And we now know that when we're kind, it's one of the best things we can do for our own mental health. Being kind to others is really good. If you're feeling depressed, being kind to others stimulates the hormones in your brain that can help you to feel happy and well again. So the kinder we are to others, the more benefit we get from that. And also the famous verse about whatever things are pure, lovely, true, think about those things. So focus your thoughts on positive stuff. Don't keep reading the bad news about the pandemic if it's making you anxious, for example. Focus on things that are positive. So he has quite a lot of things in that chapter that are a really good handbook for good mental health, but I hadn't spotted that before, so it's really helpful. So what are emotions anyway? As a family therapist, we think about emotions as invitations to connect. So when I share a feeling, maybe I'm struggling with something and I share my anxieties about that. It's an invitation to come and help me. Bernie knows if Karen's anxious, help her. That will fix her. And in Romans 12, Paul says, be happy with those who are happy, be sad with those who are sad. Connect with them where they're at, because we need that as human beings. They're our natural response to living in this broken world with chaos and pain, as well as in a world of beauty, love, and joy. And emotions are information to us to help us respond appropriately when we are in the difficult situations on earth, like fear, like even anger can help us to stand up for things of social justice. And these ideas, as I said, are taken from this book by Positivity by Barbara Fredrickson. But I realized that they're actually helpful for us as Christians. So when I talk about negative emotions, they're not bad. It's not bad to feel a negative emotion, like sadness and frustration and stress and all those things. They are just natural responses to what's happening. So feelings are not good or bad. They just are. But there are some feelings that drain us, so they put us into a negative account, and some that fill us up. And the ones that fill us up and make us feel happy help us to flourish. And the news for me was that we can actually choose these feelings, and that is what's really helped me. So emotional balance is important because we live in a broken world and bad stuff happens. So we're going to have face challenges. And we can balance those difficult emotions by choosing the positive emotions. And I do this like every day. About 5 o'clock when I'm coming home from work on the bus, I check in and think, whoa, what kind of day was that? Whoa, that was a bit heavy. And on my way home, I will choose positive emotions, positive experiences to rebalance me. And we can teach children to do this as well. So if you're feeling a bit, oh, that was a day, you can then choose some positive things. I will think of 10 things I'm thankful for. I will look out at nature around me and focus on what fills me with wonder and delight. I will look at something funny on my phone. And then I get off my bus a bit early. I walk the nicest way home. If I get off nearest my home, it's a horrible way. But if I get off a bit earlier, I get to go through a prettier route, and I look for something I can take a picture of on my phone to fill me with wonder, or I listen to a nice podcast. By the time I get home to Bernie, I'm actually a nice person again, so he likes that. and I like that too, because it really helps me. And before, I didn't know I could do that. I just thought, oh, bad day, it's going to be bad all evening now, kind of that attitude. But now I know that I can choose, and when I do some of those positive things, it helps to rebalance me, and I can feel a lot better. And it stops the buildup of negative days, bad days that build up and then can make you burn out, or if you just feel too heavy, anxious, and depressed. And I used to sail with my dad in a boat like this. So it's a bit like sailing on the sea. Life has its ups and downs, and they're like the waves. And we go up and down, up and down. And if we have too many negative emotions, they're like a lot of weight in the boat, and it gets sluggish. You get dragged into the water, and maybe the water will come over the side, and the ride isn't so much fun. But positive emotions are like the wind in the sails that just carry you along. And when I used to go fast with my dad in his Fireball, it was amazing. Go over the waves with the wind, and it was just felt so good. So even though there were ups and downs, it felt exciting, not like, oh, I'm stuck in the water and it's coming over the side. So that's what the positive emotions do. They're the wind in our sails to carry us over. So they help to broaden our minds. They help us to recover from stress. They help us to build resilience, face challenges, and help us to be loving and lovable people. We just do a lot better when we are balancing our emotions in this way, the way Paul did, because he was in a difficult situation, but he knew if he did all these positive things, it would help him. And actually in that chapter, he says, copy what I'm doing. Do what you've learned from me, because it's good for you. So emotions are not shameful. Never shame anyone for their emotions, because they're just normal responses to living in this world. And I think the positive emotions are the emotions of heaven that we can taste today to help us with the stuff on earth. So some negative emotions are really important. Like if someone's died, we need to feel sad. That's an important part of grieving, of letting go, a normal process. Sometimes stress can also help us to do something we need to do, get on with it. Frustration can help us to get some help for what we're experiencing. But sometimes we can be overwhelmed by negative emotions, and they make us feel hopeless. And this was interesting. Most people have 2-to-1 negative to positive emotions. So 1 negative and 2 positive. And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. I mean, to feel happy twice as much as you feel sad, that's got to be good. I think that was probably more than I thought I had when I first learned about this. But we actually have better emotional health when the ratio is at least 3-to-1. In fact, it's nearly pi, which is interesting, the actual ratio. And so I wonder whether there's something about that. So that's the baseline, 3 positive to 1 negative in that balance. And actually, we do better if we're 4-to-1, 5-to-1. If you get too high, you may have lost contact with reality, and you might need some help with that. So you're not aiming to be 10-to-1 or something like that, because you probably float off into the atmosphere somewhere. So what are some of the negative emotions that we have? Can anyone think of some of the emotions that drain us? Maybe the kids might know some. The challenging emotions. Maybe you don't feel emotions. Maybe I'm just actually, no need to be here. You've got it all sorted. Well, here's a list of the top most common draining emotions: anger, contempt, disgust, embarrassment, fear, frustration, guilt, sadness, shame, and stress. And I'm going to go through the negative ones quickly, and then we'll get on to the positive ones, and that's where we have all the fun stuff for the kids to do and get involved with. But it's important for us to know what the draining emotions are, to understand what they're about. So anger, we've probably all experienced anger ourselves, and so I put a definition, and then some ways you might be able to help people with that. So displeasure, hostility towards someone or something, and we can help by listening to someone, by saying, whoa, sounds like you had a really bad day. Tell me about that, rather than, oh, you shouldn't feel angry. Tell me what's been going on. Tell me what the problem is, and help them to look for win-win solutions. I do a whole seminar on anger. If you're interested in anger, I've done one on understanding anger. If you go onto YouTube, put understanding anger, Karen Holford, you'll get a whole hour seminar on anger. because I'm so often asked about it. Then there's contempt, and I'm really sorry, Giraffe. I couldn't find any person that looked contemptuous, but giraffes kind of have that snooty look. They have to look down on everything because they're so high, right? So contempt is feeling disrespectful towards someone or something, having a bitter sense of superiority. This is one of the worst things that we can feel. It's really toxic to us to be contemptuous of others. So be aware of that. Look for their strengths, show them compassion, and remember that everyone is a beloved child of God made in his image. Then there's disgust, and that's like yuck. Anything that makes you go yuck is disgusting. And taste, smells, or sounds, feels horrible. And that's there to help us stay away from toxins and dangers. But deep experience of disgust can be really traumatic and lead to mental health issues. I've worked with several people who, from a really terrible situation of disgust, ended up with something like OCD because they were just reacting to the horror of what they had been through. Embarrassment, the feeling of shame when something you did wrong and badly is made public and everyone gets to know and you just want to die. So comfort and support people who've been embarrassed. Don't add to their shame on social media. Build them up kindly. Talk about what they did well. Do something to help them feel special. And really encourage young people not to shame others on social media because it's so destructive. Like some people have actually committed suicide because of the shame on social media. Then fear is feeling of anxiety about a real, possible, or probable situation that you think, oh, I'm not going to manage that well. And they're often based on traumatic past experiences. And so don't shame people. Help them to feel safe. Perfect love casts out fear. So if someone is feeling afraid, it's your perfect love they need to help them. Now, I had this really bizarre fear, and I'm going to be vulnerable with you here. I have a fear of escalators. So, yeah, it's a bit weird. But when I was 3, I lived in Africa, and on the mission field, we came back from Africa, and the same week we came back, I was going to be a bridesmaid. I got taken to a fancy store to buy a dress, and then someone put me on an escalator in front of them. So I'm like, what on earth has someone just put me on? What is this? How does it even work? How do you get off? What is it? And I see it disappear into the ground. I'm thinking, pasta machine? You know, what happens when you get to the bottom? So, yes, my mum could never take me on an escalator for a long time after that. Most of the time I can manage escalators. I usually stand behind someone who looks larger, or like 10 people, so I know if I fall, I'm going to have a soft landing, and that helps me. And also now I realise I actually have a visual problem, which hasn't helped the escalator situation. So if someone blocks my vision down, then I'm better as well. So one day, Bernie knows about not shaming me, and we were in a foreign country in the capital city. And we went to go on the underground, and I got to the end of the escalator, and I looked down, and I was like, no, today I can't do this. Tomorrow I might be able to, but today my brain will just say, no, you can't do that. And there wasn't a lift, and Bernie goes, that's all right, Karen, we can walk 2 kilometers instead. Because he knows that his perfect love needs to manage my fear. So it's a weird one, but you know, it's important to understand where the fears come from, because they often come from something in childhood that we didn't know how to articulate at the time. We may not even have words for. So fears of having our faces underwater, or dogs and other things may come, or precipices may come from different experiences that happened when we were babies and children that no one explained to us, but our body holds the memory, and it says, whoa, that's a bit scary, don't do that one again, because our body's trying to protect us. So that's why we have fear. So fear is very protective. It stops me walking too close to the edge of cliffs, and it stops me hang gliding like Bernie wants to do. So he has to go on his own, and I'm not even going to look. So because I have a thing about heights as well. So frustration, it's feeling of irritation that it's going to take longer to reach your goals than you expected, or when someone's critical of you and you're doing your best. And it's important to take a deep breath, calm down, look for some alternative solutions, ask for some help. Guilt, that horrible feeling when you think, oh no, I've done something really wrong, or I've hurt somebody. And it's actually really important to put things right the same day. We now know, this is very recent research, that if a relationship between you and someone else has got broken on a day, you've had an argument or you feel pushed apart for whatever reason, something has broken your closeness, it's important to mend it the same day, because if you sleep on it, on a broken relationship, it builds up like anxiety and depression in your brain. And they first did this research with teenagers and their parents, and when teenagers had had a conflict with their parents and went to bed on that conflict without it being resolved, they started to get more anxious and more depressed over time if that continued. So it's really important to mend it the same day. And if you're the adult and you're thinking, they started it, they should come and apologize, sometimes they don't know how to do that. So go and make up with them to help them with that. And it's actually also in the Bible, isn't it? You know, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Sort it out, because God knew it's really important for our brains. Then sadness is feeling a sense of loss or helplessness, aloneness, misunderstood. And the Bible tells us to listen, to comfort, to be sad with those who are sad. And sometimes I've just sat and cried with people because there are just no words for what they're going through. And that was special, just being sad. Like Job's friends, they were great when they shut their mouths and just sat there and were sad. Once they started to speak, everything went wrong. So sometimes it's just enough to be there to comfort them. And also to let little boys cry. It's really important that little boys cry and are comforted, because that is how their brains learn empathy for others. And boys who are not comforted when they cry can develop brains where they can be more hurtful towards others, less empathic towards them, and don't know how to comfort them or themselves. So it's actually really important that we let them cry. Shame is feeling, someone else will often give you shame. They will tell you you're stupid or no good or something like that, and the messages get stuck in our brain. So lift people up as Jesus did. He never shamed them. He just scooped them up and raised them up higher and protected them from shame. And that's what we need to do. Let them know how valuable they are. And stress, feeling that you've been asked to do more than you can manage. And maybe if you don't work hard enough, you'll be seen as a failure. So plan your work, do what you can to reduce stress, ask for help, learn to say no. One of my friends thought I needed to learn to say no, so she gave me this thing with a chain with N-O on it. So I put it in my hand the other way around and said, oh, look, this says on, on all the time. She said, no, it's no. And so it's learning to say no kindly. And now I think if I can't fit it in this week in my life, I'm probably not going to be able to fit it in the week when you want it either. And I'll say, actually, I realize I'm not going to be able to give this the best that it deserves, so maybe ask somebody else. Find a nice way to say things. Okay, now we've got the nasty ones out the way. What are the 10 most common happy emotions and good emotions? Anyone want to venture a few of those? It's good to know the definitions of the negative ones and bits of how to deal with them. So, do you have positive emotions? Do you have emotions that make you feel good? What are they? Joy, yeah, great. Joy, there's one. Any others? Love, Humor, yeah, yes, good. They're in the top 10. Gratitude, absolutely, yeah. Someone's been reading the handouts, I think. So this is the lovely positive ones. These are the emotions of heaven. This is what you want to concentrate on. And they're amusement, gratitude, inspiration, joy, serenity, hope, interest, feeling valued, awe and wonder, and love. These are the 10 most common ones that are amazing, that we need to engage with ourselves and help our children and young people to do. The more often we engage with these, it protects our brain from mental health issues, keeps us healthier. Of course, we may still struggle with issues. Life is complex. But when we choose these, it helps to rebalance us in a really positive way. So on this table, a little bag and some instructions and things are all there to help you experience some positive emotions. Actually, it'd be helpful if you could sit where you can just chat to somebody near you or decide who you're going to talk to, because I'm just going to give you tiny little tasks. And if you don't want to do them, then just chat whatever you want to chat about. But some of them are quite useful to do to experience. So the first one is humor, as Andrew said, laughing and smiling at something unexpected, unusual, and safe. And we laugh with others and not at others, because that's not nice. That laughing at is contempt, and that's the worst thing for us. So a cheerful heart is good medicine. And what makes you laugh? What do you do in your family to make you laugh? So find someone near you and either describe something funny that happened to you, say what your favorite funny movie is, maybe there's a funny picture or joke that you see on the internet, Tell each other what makes you laugh the most. So just find someone near you and just share something funny, maybe a funny story or any one of these things. And just think about something funny. What was the funniest thing that happened to you? Someone's sharing a funny picture on the phone there. So what's funny? What makes you laugh? Sometimes it's words that make us laugh. Sometimes we like to see visual things that happen. Maybe it's funny animals doing funny antics. So what is it that makes you laugh? Or tell each other a joke. So when our kids were teenagers, every time when we sat around the dinner table in the evening, we would share the funniest thing that happened to us. And there was always something funny. I can't remember what any of them are now. But we would save the funny things or find something funny on our phone to laugh at together. And it's so good to laugh together. So if you make yourself one of these little goodie bags, I had these smiley people that stretch and ping. And they're very jolly. So every time you look at this, you can't help but laugh, and you can do funny things with them and ping them. So the children can all put one of these in their bags, and you can as well. Anyone can have them. There's plenty. So this is the little funny guy to remind us to laugh. And the more often we laugh, the better off we are. Children laugh something like hundreds of times a day. And when adults laugh, it's often less than 10. I can't remember the exact research, but it's not nearly as much as children. So if we laughed as much as children did, I think we'd be a lot happier. Of course we would be. So think about how we can find the funny side of things that happen around us and say what helps you laugh the most. And find out what other people in your family like to laugh at the most. Then there's awe and wonder, sense of wonder about something beautiful in nature or in another person. How many are your works, Lord? In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. And Psalm 104 is just full of wonder at what God has made. So it's really important to slow down and to really focus on these flowers that are in the church, or a shell, or even watching a snail, or even a blade of grass, or a leaf, or an acorn on the ground. Really look at the wonders of nature around you. Help kids to pause and really have a good look at them. Draw them, take a photograph of them, to help them really focus. Remember when I was a child at school, we always had a nature table with all these wonderful things on it that we could go and experience. And my mum was a natural history teacher, so she always gave me things to take to the nature table. And she gave me a sense of wonder at all the wonderful things in the world. And that's been so good for me. I've never lost that sense of, wow-ness. And so make sure you grow your sense of wonder. Just stop and think, what can I be amazed at? And, there's, I love to find things that can amaze me. And if there's nothing else to look at, if I'm a complete empty room, no windows, I can always look at my hand. And my hand is amazing. I have opposable thumbs. And you can just think of all the, hundreds of things your hands can do. It's wow. All the little muscles that are in there. And I can do this without even thinking about it. My hand it's just amazing. I think my eyes are amazing, but I can't see my eyes for obvious reasons. So it's easier for me to look at my hands. So spend time being filled with wonder. I did a whole service on wonder for St. Albans Church recently, and there was a little boy, and everyone thought he wasn't really listening. He was 5 or 6, and he was just drawing. That afternoon, his parents took him for a walk, and he was really dawdling at the back. And he said, come along, why don't you walk a bit faster? And he said, I'm doing what Auntie Karen said to do in church, and I'm slowing down, and I'm looking at all the wonderful things God has made, and it's incredible. You must slow down and look at them with me. And so the parents were okay, let's do this. And they saw things they would never have seen before. And the scientists are more and more talking about the benefit of wonder, what it does. Even the Harvard Business College says, when you're having your boring meetings, start with a moment of wonder. Pass something round that's natural to look at and be filled with wonder, or share what fills you with wonder, or have everyone bring a photograph of something that fills them with wonder. Get your teenagers to put together a slideshow of what filled them with wonder in the last week, because it is so good for us. When we've had an experience of wonder, we draw ourselves smaller than before we had the sense of wonder. It's like we realize that we are smaller in the universe than we thought we were, because there are things beyond our ability to make and beyond our comprehension. So it's really, really good to have moments of wonder. And here on the table, I bought some shells, actually from Mexico. I bought them in Mexico. And there's some really pretty shells to put in the bag. And also you can just look at them. Because if I gave you a flower, it would die, and then it wouldn't be so nice anymore. But a shell will last. So get children to look at things with wonder, to slow down, to do bark rubbings in Pathfinders and things like this. Anything that helps them to slow down and experience nature in a slow way, to explore it more, think about it more, focus on the details is really good. And someone mentioned gratitude. Yes, gratitude is a positive emotion. It's appreciation of something or someone who makes our life better. And Paul tells us to give thanks in all circumstances, not for all circumstances, but in them. When we're in the moment, there's always things that we can thank God for. So what I want you to do in a moment is to think of something to thank God for that begins with the letter of your first name and your second name. So 2 things that you can say thank you to God for, beginning with those letters. So we would often, as a family, go through the whole alphabet, thanking God for one thing after another through the alphabet. And you can't do that without feeling a sense of joy at the end, because gratitude is so, so good for us. When we thank others, we feel happy too. It blesses us and the other person and raises our joy experience. I will sometimes walk along the street when I need to have some positive emotion and thank God for one thing after the other as I'm walking. That I live in a place that has streetlights at night, that I live in a place where people clean the litter away, for the beautiful tree, for the people coming towards me, for the fact we have cars to get around in. There is just so much. Or go into any room in your house as a family or as a person and list the things you've never thanked God for that are in that room. Because I bet there's thousands of things in your house you've never thanked God for. The forks, or the tin opener, different things that make your life easier. And if there's something in your home you're not thankful for, maybe give it to someone who will be thankful for it. There's a really lovely video called A Good Day with Brother David Steindl-Rast. I think he's a monk or something. And he does a lovely thing to help us feel gratitude, because the water comes out of our tap. We can plug things into the electricity. That's kind of cool. That's just amazing. And so he helps us to be thankful for the simple things that are around us all the time, because when we just thank God for those things, we are blessed. And it really helps us to, it's one of the main ways to feel happy is to be thankful. And that's why Paul often says, pray with thanksgiving, because it makes us feel really praisey. So there's thank you cards down here, so you can write a thank you card to God, or you can put the letters of the alphabet in it and write one thing you're thankful to God for each of those letters. But if there's someone to turn to next to you, just say thank you to God for 2 things that begin with your first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name. So what 2 things are you thankful for today? And maybe if any children are listening, they can also think about what they're thankful for. So share thankfulness with somebody. Even just one thing. What are you thankful for today? Our brains can't be thankful and anxious at the same time. So if you're feeling anxious, going through your list of thankfulness is really helpful for calming the brain. So if you come across someone who's really anxious, get them to do something like going through the alphabet, making an alphabet of gratitude. When you're with your children, get them to say 3 things they're thankful for. And the researchers say that even if children don't believe in God, they should say thank you before a meal. so they don't have a sense of entitlement. It's good for them to be grateful for everything that they have too. So, hope is the belief that things can and will change and improve. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles, run and not grow weary, walk and not be faint. So, the Bible tells us that hope is like energizing. It strengthens us when we have hope. When you don't have hope, you feel discouraged and burdened, like there's a great big weight on your back. But hope can make us feel lighter. Things will get better. And it's always good to have something to look forward to. So what are you looking forward to right now? Maybe in the next week or further in the future. Children need something to look forward to, little ones today, or with it by the end of the week if they're a little bit older. But when we have things to look forward to, it really helps us to stay positive and energized. And actually, I think Sabbath is a gift to give us hope every week. It's something we can look forward to every week. And if we're not looking forward to Sabbath, if our children are not looking forward to Sabbath, what can we do to help them be filled with delight at Sabbath? Because that's intended to give us hope every single week, something to look forward to. And I believe that God gave his people lots and lots of celebrations and feasts in their calendar, so they'd always have something to look forward to. Within a month or so, there'd be another big feast where everyone would get together, because that's good for us, good for our well-being. So make sure you always have something to look forward to with your friends and family. Plan fun times and celebrations, and invite people who might not have so much to look forward to, people who are discouraged or sad or their hope is waning. Help them to come along and have something to look forward to as well. And work with your kids to plan things that they're looking forward to. So you work as a family to have the hopes to carry you forward. Inspiration is being inspired by God or another person. Someone can inspire you by the way they play the piano, by their writing, by their how they dance or sing, or their engineering skills or their medical skills. So whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, think on these things. Be inspired by them, says Paul. So think of a person in the Bible or in history or someone in the world today. Who inspires you? What inspires you? And think about someone who has inspired you in your life. What else inspires you? What's the most inspiring verse for you in the Bible that keeps you going through challenging times? And we have some Bible verses here for you to choose to put in the goodie bag. And if you don't even want it for yourself, you can make one to give away to someone who might need a positivity goodie bag. A very interesting emotion that you wouldn't think of as an emotion is having a really good hobby. So things that you love to do. So being intrigued, fascinated, or challenged by something new, having an absorbing hobby. And we all need one of these. When we have something we can just go to and lose our minds in and just experience. It can be a book, a jigsaw, go for a run, a piece of music, artwork, whatever it is that you can just lose yourself in for a while. It's so, so good to have something that you can just do. Just pick up and take your mind off everything by doing something you really, really enjoy. Or even watching a movie. And sometimes your interest can also be times of wonder and laughter, and a few things rolled into one. So think about what your hobby is, and make sure that you have something you can pick up and do quickly in your hobby. If you've had a rough day, go home, pick up something and lose yourself in it for a little while. What it does is it breaks the pattern in your brain of worrying or thinking about things that are hard, because you go into this happy space with your craft and it breaks the anxiety cycle. Your mind can have a good rest and you start to feel better again. So what's your favorite off-screen hobbies? What do you like to do? What's the most fun thing? It can be playing games as a family, can be gardening, can be all sorts of things, whatever you enjoy. And if someone's a bit down and you know what their hobby is, try and say, come along, let's go and do this together. Help them to get engaged in it. Help your children, your teenagers to do something. And what do you feel when you're doing your hobby? Which are the positive emotions do you experience? And realize, think about them as you're experiencing them. And are there things you'd love to have a go at that you've never had the chance to try yet? Go and start to practice something new. Yesterday we heard about a lady who had been learning bridge for 7 years, and she hadn't learnt it. She didn't master the skill, but her involvement in that for 7 years was like her interest. Something to think about, to take her mind off everything else, and that's really good for us. Then joy. Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Joy is obviously just so good for us. The Bible talks a lot about joy. And I want you to think about the happiest moment in your week. So it wasn't the funniest, but the happiest, and share it with someone near you now. What was the happiest moment in your week? And share it with someone close to you. What was the happiest thing that happened this week? I hope something happy happened in your week. I'm a bit worried if it didn't. But if you can't think of the happiest thing, think of a happy thing that happened. And it can be really small. It could also be a moment of wonder. But what helped you to feel happy? Because when you share the happy story with someone else, when people share them in a group like this, I can see the room light up. Everyone starts to look happy. There's like a buzz in the room, and the whole atmosphere lifts when people are sharing their happy stories. And it's a good thing to do with children and with whoever we're living with at the end of the day. So what was the happiest thing that happened, and share it and celebrate it? And what was the most difficult or saddest thing, and then comfort it? So share your joyful stories when you can. Having a healthy sense of value is important. I am special, and I have a little gem here for everyone in the bag to remind you that you are really precious. You're so special to God and to other people, and you sparkle like a precious gem. Obviously, this is just plastic, but to God, we're far more precious than anything we could ever find on earth. So it's really important that we feel that what we do is valued by others, and children as well, that what they do to help in the home is really valued, and tell them, you did that well, that was good, thank you for what you do. Thank you for just taking your cup back to the kitchen or picking this up. And actually, when we thank people for doing what we want them to do, that's far more effective than nagging them for what they don't do. So try and say positive things and thank people. You can shape people's behavior by thanking them in the direction you want them to go in, rather than telling them off for what they haven't done. So whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, working for the Lord and not for men. And something that I love to do is to talk to people about what went well at the end of the day. WWW, so you can all remember that. At the end of each day, list 3 things that went well and focus on them. Because actually, if we think about it, pretty much 95%, if not more, of what you do in a day, you do really well. You do. But when you come to the evening and you're tired, you'll remember that things you did in that 3-5% that wasn't so well, and that will shape how you see the day. You focus on the negative. And Paul says, don't do that. Focus on the positive things. So help people to think about what they did well as well. So I work as a family therapist, and sometimes people will come and say, I'm the most terrible parent. Social services has a file on me that's like this thick about how bad I am as a parent. And they feel so crushed by that. And I will help them to find out what they do well as a parent. I will notice it and tell them things that no one has told them before. And then if they say, I'm such a bad parent, I don't do anything well. So I will say to them, okay, at the end of the day, are your children still alive? Yeah? Yeah, well, that's pretty good, right? That's really, really important. I've had 3 kids. One of them broke 15 bones before he left home. I know keeping them alive is a really good thing. And then, did you feed them? Yeah, you fed them. Well, that's brilliant. They're fed and they're safe, and they're in bed. That's amazing that, you just did 3 great things well today. Don't underestimate what it takes to get children through the day alive, fed, and into bed. That's a huge task. And they will laugh about it, but it just helps them to see that so much of what we do well. And don't forget that. So it's really good for our well-being and the well-being of those around us, particularly our children, to say, what did you do well today? And they might say, I did this and this. And then you tell them, and I also saw you do this. Add some extra things onto their list to help them go to bed feeling good. And then serenity. I love serenity. And the children can have some bubbles when they come and check their packs. So we all like the stillness, the calm of serenity. And find a space where you can be quiet and peaceful and pray. We all need quiet spaces, children as well, because we tend to rush them through the day, fill our life with so many things. We're always on the phone, always available. And we all need time so we can just be quiet and just think and reflect on what went well and just have some peaceful time. And what can really help is something called bubble breathing. And I discovered this when my children were really little, because I got really stressed out as a mother one day. And I said to Bernie, hey, can you just come and watch these kids while I go and get some serenity? Otherwise, I don't know what's going to happen. So I went out in the garden, and I was just wandering around, taking some deep breaths and trying to have a moment of wonder. And I found the kids' bubbles in the garden. And it was a much bigger bubble pop than this. And I just picked them up, and I started to blow bubbles. And if you blow bubbles, if you take a deep breath in, just do it, just imaginary, and then blow bubbles slowly. Imagine you're blowing a really big bubble, and do it again. And again. If you do that 3 times, it's really, really calming. So I get into some really stressful situations in my work. I'm in another country, something's going wrong. I have no idea what's going wrong. No one's speaking English, but they're in panic. And I'm thinking, what on earth is happening? And I'm like, yikes, or my PowerPoint doesn't work, or something goes pear-shaped. Or I'm about to speak to like loads of people, and I'm really scared. I'll go into a corner, and I'll just pretend I'm blowing bubbles. And I just say, as I'm doing that, be still and know that I am God. And it really, really helps me to calm down. Be still and know that I am God. So as I breathe out, I say those words, or I think those words. And it really calms me. And it reminds me it's not about me, it's about God as well. But blowing bubbles is one of the things now they say is really good, because it's a natural way our bodies can calm down. So if your children are stressed out, or you're stressed out, go and use the bubbles to help you calm down. So there's bubbles here to get as well. Also, things that help to calm us are sipping cold water, smelling lavender and citrus, listening to soothing music, focusing on a Bible verse. Find out what calms you down and know when you need it and go and do it. And help your children to find that as well. So ask them what helps to calm them down. And love is a blend of all these other lovely emotions within a warm, close, safe, and caring relationship. So when we share peace or laughter or hope with other people, then we do that in love, and that's a really nice feeling. So what helps you to feel especially loved? Kind words, being helped, having little presents, thoughtful gifts, someone spending time with you, physical affection, etc. Bernie and I have, at the end of each day, we have what we call a chocolate moment. And these have become famous because when we talk to couples or anyone, we talk about our chocolate moments. And even when we're apart from each other, I take chocolate with me so we can meet online at the end of the day and have our chocolate moment. And about 10 o'clock, one of us will say, I think it's time for a chocolate moment. No one's going to say no to that, right? At least not in our house. We have a whole drawer of chocolate. And it's like a cutlery drawer. And it's... So we have like the 90%, and we have the 85%, and the 75%, and the 70%. We're kind of high cocoa content chocolate people. And we'll just choose one piece of chocolate and share it, and we'll talk about our day together. And it's our like positive love moment connection. And the science is that if you have 10 60-second love connections in the day, that your relationship will survive all sorts of challenges. So try and have 10 one-minute connections with your children, with your spouses, with anyone who's special to you in the day. And the reason I think it is that every time we have a loving connection, it releases oxytocin into our brain, and that feels nice and good, but then it goes down a bit. So then we need to have another fix, and if someone comes and sends us a nice text or gives us a hug or says something lovely or gives us a chocolate, we get another boost. And so the science shows that 10 one-minute positive connections is really good for us. So it's a bit like this. Imagine this is our heart. And we go to God first as well for love. So we go to God with our empty hearts. Help us, God. And God can fill our hearts with love. Then we can go around, give it to people like this. And then it goes all flat again, and we go back to God and he will fill us up again so we can share it on as well with others. So there's balloons there to take for the children to teach them about love as well. So love is kindness, and being kind is where are we going here? Is really good for us. Being kind is so good for our emotional well-being. The kinder we are, the kinder our children are, then it really helps us to feel good about ourselves, and other people feel happier too. Being kind is a really effective way to rebalance the negative emotions in this world. And I believe God gave us the instruction to be kind, to bless each other, because he knew it also blessed us. I have a friend in Scotland, and he's an amazing Christian. And I asked him one time, because his family does many amazing things, what do you most want to be remembered for? And he said, straight off, for being kind. That's what I want to be remembered for being kind. And I said, well, how do you do that in your life? And he says, well, I think of every situation, I think, what can I do to be kind? And then I think, what can I do to be even kinder? And I do the second thing. And it's his way of saying, to go the second mile, really. But we can be kind and help our children to be kind, and then think, what can you do to be even kinder? And when we do that, it's even more of a blessing. So kindness is an important thing to encourage. And on my website, I have all these hundreds of ideas to be kind as well. So a little bit about this. Our thoughts and our behavior, emotions are all connected. So what we think about life and ourselves affects our behavior and our feelings. Our feelings will affect our thoughts and our behavior. And what we do affects our thoughts and our emotions. So when we start to have more positive emotions, we start to think more positively and behave more positively as well. And it's a matter of perspective, because if you look at this picture, it's really dark and gloomy. And we can choose. We can go through the world looking at the dark, gloomy bits, or we can take a step back, because this is the bigger picture from what that shot is. That shot was the very middle of this. But if we take a step back and look at the bigger picture of life, we can notice beauty, light, and joy all around us, as Paul chose to do in his difficult situation. It's his choice. It's our choice. So the NHS in the UK says there's 5 ways to emotional well-being. Connect with others well, be active, move, pay attention to details of nature, life, beauty, relationships, that's wonder, give generously, that's also being kind, and keep learning and growing. And the great thing is, all of these are actually part of our faith as Adventists. To connect with people, we come to church, we encourage activity, we pay attention to creation and wonder, we give generously, and we keep learning and growing. So they're all help us too. So it's helpful to make a list of all the things that help you to experience positive emotions. It's different for everybody. I've just given you some. But make a list of them, because when you're having a gloomy moment, you can have a look at that list and go, oh, yeah, I could just do that. And it's quite helpful to make a little bag like this and keep it somewhere where you sit down. So if you have a bad day, you can think, oh, rubbish, got no energy to do anything. But you can dip into your bag and find something, maybe put a funny book in there, something that inspires you, some objects of wonder that you can do, your hobby or a puzzle that will engage your mind and break your anxiety rut. So just think about what you could put in your well-being kit that will help you when you're having a bad day, so you can just dip into it. Or know what you can help other people to engage with. If they're too exhausted, say, come and do this with me, or let's think about what we're grateful for, going through the alphabet, something like that, just to help them rebalance their own mind. So as adults, we can be good examples to children about how we manage our own emotions. And you could say something about how you manage a difficult emotion. Today I was really frustrated. I had to do some photocopying, and the photocopier didn't work. And it was really urgent for my boss. So I was really frustrated, and then I stopped. I took some deep breaths and thought about it, prayed, and I remembered that my colleague has a photocopier in her office. So I went down to her. She helped me, and I solved the problem. Now, you wouldn't normally tell that to your teenager or your child, but by telling those little stories of how you managed your emotions, your challenging emotions, and how you sorted things out can help equip your child to deal with them. Help your children and teenagers to have as many words for emotions as possible so they can talk about them rather than just act them out aggressively or anger and frustration. So the more words they have, the more they can describe it. listen for their feelings and reflect back what they're saying, or spot them. Oh, it sounds like you had a really bad day. That sounds frustrating. That sounds sad. That sounds like you're really angry. How can I help you? Although I usually say that sounds like you're frustrated rather than angry, because people don't like it if you say it sounds like you're angry. So I call it frustration. But listen for the feelings and reflect back what you're hearing to help them name their emotions. Help them to solve their own solutions. Don't just fix it for them. Help them to look for their own solutions, because that helps them to develop their toolbox for dealing with their own problems. So support them, but don't fix it. Do activities that absorb all their attention, so you can distract them together. Sports, crafts, all sorts of things. And get them to laugh, especially before you teach them something. Encourage them to laugh, because they will learn better when they laugh. And be a positive role model. The more positive emotions we have in our life, the more people will see them, learn from us, kind of feel those emotions through us. We can share them with people around us and help them, so that they can experience the positive emotions that they might have lost sight of. And also find peace where you can reflect and grow your own relationship with God. So it's up to us to make happy choices with our life and help our children and teenagers to make those happy choices too, to have as many positive emotions as possible, because the more we do, the more balanced we stay. There's the website positivityratio.com. You can go on there, fill in a little questionnaire, and see where you are on the positivity ratio, how much negative to positive emotions you have, and just check in with yourself. And if you're a bit dippy, then do some of these things. So laugh, wonder, be kind, be playful, inspire people, and focus on the best. And as a family therapist, this is what I do with families. We make emotional pies. So if you're working with a child or a young person, and if there were more children here now, I'd say draw a circle and divide it up by what you're feeling just right now in this moment. And it helps to see then visually how much positive and negative emotions they're feeling, what's going on in their life. And sometimes I get children to guess what's going on in their parents' life and parents to guess the children's. Nearly always the children guess the parents' emotions better than the parents guess the children's ones. So we do these emotional pies and we say, I'm most likely to feel this emotion when, and show it by doing this. And when I feel this, I need other people to help me by doing this. And this can really help families to talk about their feelings in a different way. So it's just another tool to use to help people who might be struggling with their emotions and not quite sure what they are, a child or a teenager, just to help you check in with where they're at. So I wonder what you've learned today. I wonder what you've learned that you hadn't known before. I found this, let's get back one. I found this really useful for myself. It's really changed my personality, really. As I said, Bernie thinks I'm a much nicer person to live with, and that's good news for him and me. So it's really helped me to stay balanced in, complex situations that I find myself in. And I find that I flourish more, I feel much more peaceful and joyful by having used some of these things that are actually all biblical principles that we never really pulled together before in this way, and that Paul somehow already knew in his life. He'd learnt from all the difficulties in his life. So I want you to turn to someone next to you and say, what struck you in this that you never knew before that you're going to try and do, or what interested you the most, or what you liked the best, which one of those activities or feelings do you like the best or you want to experience more of. Just share something about what you're taking away with you right now. And then I've got a funny video for you to see. And maybe the children upstairs will watch this as well. So just have a little connection time about what you're taking away, what you learnt, your favourite idea, that you're going to go and buy lots of bubbles or whatever it is. And then we'll show you the video. And then you can come and put together some goodie bags or ask some questions or whatever. Okay, so connect and then I'll show you a video. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you've learned something that's helpful. It took me quite a few years to really get this embedded in my life, so just giving you that kind of warning. And then I realized how wonderful it is and how much it is helpful. And I kind of felt then we should teach children this when they're really young, because it's not hard. None of these things are really hard. We all know what these emotions are, how to experience them. But when you realize how it rebalances you in the difficult world, then it's really helpful. Okay, now I have a funny video about the importance of joy and playfulness in our life. So hopefully this will work with the sound and everything, and we'll be able to see this. So life is a journey. Enjoy the ride. Let's pray. Father God, we want to thank you for creating us to experience so many emotions. Thank you that Paul somehow knew these things and scattered these things in the Bible for us to learn from. And you can help us to experience them today. Help us wherever we're at in our emotional balance ratio to learn how to choose the experiences of heaven that can help to rebalance us on this broken world. Thank you that you care about everything and all that we feel, and you're always there with us to talk to and help us. In Jesus' name, amen. So any questions?